The intended audience for this video is the property manager. If you need your residents to see how to register or how to use the resident portal, please send them to this link. As you bring on new tenants, you enter their information in the contacts notebook. If you are using the resident portal, an important piece of information to gather is their web portal email. This is the email address that residents will use to log in to the resident portal, so it is important that it is entered accurately. You also need to make sure the checkbox is selected to allow login to web portal. Now let's look at how the resident will access the portal and any follow-up that you may need to do in order for them to gain access. When your residents visit the portal for the first time, they will need to register by clicking the Register Now link and will be prompted to submit some basic information. If you have previously entered their contact information in PropertyBoss and the email address you entered as the portal email address matches the address the resident entered when registering, that resident will be able to gain access to the portal immediately. In that situation, you will not need to approve the registration, nor will you receive any web activity notification. If you have not entered the resident's email address in PropertyBoss yet, or if the address the resident entered in the registration doesn't match exactly what you entered in PropertyBoss, you will need to approve their registration before they can gain access to the portal. In these cases, you will receive a web activity notification. When you execute this web activity, you will be required to match the requester with a resident or contact in PropertyBoss. The information at the top of this window is the information that was submitted by the resident from the portal. You will need to locate that resident by selecting them from the drop-down list at the bottom. You can also begin by typing the last name and the list will begin filtering. Be sure Allow Login is selected and then click OK. If you have multiple web activity registrations to process, clicking OK will take you to the next one on the list. If your residents' registrations come to you as a web activity, they will be unable to access the portal until you approve them as shown here. So it is important that you process these requests as quickly as possible. Once all registrations have been processed, a transaction log will be displayed. You can keep this transaction log for your records by emailing it, exporting it to Excel, or printing it. If you are using the hosted version of PropertyBoss, your changes will take effect immediately. If you are using the self-hosted version of PropertyBoss, that database will need to sync before the resident can successfully log in. The database is scheduled to synchronize based on the settings defined in Web Services and Setup Preferences. But if you need these changes to take effect immediately, you can force a sync by clicking on Initiate Manual Synchronization. Once the resident has successfully gained entry to the portal, they will see their lease information. If you have enabled e-payments, the resident can click here to make a one-time payment or schedule a recurring payment. The Charges tab will display a breakdown of the charges that make up their monthly bill. The Contacts tab allows them to keep their contact information current. The Documents tab will display any documents that you have made available to them. In order for documents to display here, you will need to select Publish on Website when adding new media to a lease or property. If you have enabled call logging, the resident can view their calls or enter a new call. If you have enabled work orders, the resident can view their work orders or enter a new one. If you have enabled inspections, the resident can view the status of their inspections. Now let's look at some troubleshooting tips to assist you when your residents contact you with issues regarding accessing your portal. If a resident contacts you and says they can't log into the portal, the first place to look is your auto post activity. Check to see if there's a web activity from them that hasn't been processed yet. The next place to look is their contact record in PropertyBoss. Verify the checkbox is selected for Allow Login to Web Portal, and verify they are logging in with the exact same email address as the one entered in the web portal email field. If the email address is incorrect or missing in this field, you will need to update it in PropertyBoss. If you are using the non-hosted or standalone version of PropertyBoss, be sure to sync the database before asking them to try logging in again. If the user tells you they didn't receive the temporary password email, the first place they should check is their junk or spam folder. If they are still unable to find it, submit a help desk request and include the user's name, their email address, and any error messages they are receiving. If they have forgotten their password, they can click the Forgot Your Password link and receive an email containing the password. For security reasons, they will be required to change the password once they log in. If they can provide the message that displays at the top of the page when they try to log in, it will help you with your troubleshooting. The email address you entered has been registered but is not associated with a lease. This means they have completed the registration process, but they are not on any current leases. Prospects cannot log into the resident portal. They must be a tenant on a lease. The email address you entered has been registered, but there are no residents associated with this email address. If you have just registered, please try again later. This means they have completed the registration process, but their email address was not found in PropertyBoss. It could mean that you haven't yet entered it in the web portal email field, or that it is different than what you have entered. Begin by checking to see if there is a web activity for this email address that needs to be processed. If there is no pending web activity for them, then manually enter or update their web portal email address in their contact record. The email address you entered has been registered and is valid, but the office has not permitted access to this account. This means they are registered and the email address is in PropertyBoss, but the Allow Login to Website checkbox is not selected.
Thank you for watching this video. Don't forget to visit our YouTube channel for other helpful videos.